The asteroid belt surrounding Kronos 7 glittered like scattered diamonds against the void. But Zara Thorne had long since stopped finding beauty in the sight. 3 years of working the Crimson, or mines, had taught her that beauty was a luxury she couldn't afford. The red dust that gave the precious mineral its name had worked its way into everything. Her clothes, her skin, her dreams. She adjusted her mining suit's filtration system and checked the power levels on her plasma cutter. Another 16-hour shift stretched ahead of her, carved from the asteroid's belly in tunnels that barely qualified as safe. The station's corporate masters cared little for worker safety. When profits were involved, Sector 7 needs immediate attention, crackled a voice through her helmet comm. The voice belonged to Kes Valdrin, one of the alien overseers who managed the mining operations. Unlike the other Kitherian supervisors, Kes's tone lacked the usual condescension. If anything, he sounded almost apologetic. Zara sighed and hefted her equipment. Sector 7 was the deepest part of the current dig, where the ore was richest but the structural integrity most questionable. It was also where workers went when the overseers wanted them gone permanently. Accidents happened frequently in Sector 7. The tunnel's artificial lighting cast eerie shadows on the rock walls. As she made her way deeper into the asteroid's core, her boots echoed hollowly against the metal grating of the walkway. When she reached the designated mining face, she found Kes waiting for her, his tall, blue-skinned form unmistakable even in the dim light. "You came alone," he said, his voice carrying that strange accent of his people. The Kitherians had been allies of the mining consortium for decades, providing technological expertise in exchange for territorial rights in the outer systems. "You called for Sector 7 specifically," Zara replied, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Usually that means someone wants me to have an accident." Kes stepped closer, and in the pale light of her helmet lamp, she could see the concern etched in his angular features. His species was known for their emotional restraint, but something had clearly shaken him. "That's exactly what it means," he said quietly. "You've been marked for termination. Your efficiency reports have been noticed. You're mining twice the quota of other workers and asking too many questions about safety protocols." Zara's blood ran cold. She'd suspected her productivity might draw unwanted attention, but she'd needed the extra credits. Her sister on Earth required expensive medical treatment, and the consortium paid bonuses for exceeding quotas. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, her hand instinctively moving to the plasma cutter at her belt. "Not that it would do much good against a Kitherian's natural strength and speed." "Because I've been watching you," Kes said, his golden eyes meeting hers through her helmet visor. "You're different from the others. You still care about your fellow workers. I've seen you sharing your food rations, helping the injured, organizing informal safety checks." The admission hung between them like a charged particle in the station's recycled air. Zara had indeed been trying to help where she could, but she'd thought her activities had gone unnoticed. "That doesn't answer my question," she pressed. Kes was quiet for a long moment, his gaze shifting to the tunnel entrance as if checking for eavesdroppers. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because my people weren't always partners with the consortium. 50 years ago, we were workers like you, indentured servants mining asteroids for our supposed allies. I remember the stories my grandmother told, of tunnels that collapsed conveniently, of quotas that could never be met, of families separated and scattered across the void." The revelation hit Zara like a physical blow. The official histories painted the Kitherian-Human alliance as a peaceful merger of interests. She'd never heard anything about forced labor or oppression. "You're telling me your people were slaves," she said, in all but name. Kes confirmed, "We earned our freedom through revolution, but it took decades and cost thousands of lives. When I was assigned to this station, I thought I could simply do my job and ignore the parallels. But watching the daily injustices, seeing workers disappear into Sector 7 never to return." He trailed off, his hands clenching into fists. What are you suggesting?" Zara asked, though she suspected she already knew. "There are others," he said. "Workers who've begun to organize, who've noticed the patterns. The quota system designed to keep you perpetually in debt. The safety violations that conveniently eliminate troublemakers. The communication blackouts that prevent contact with families. Zara thought of her sister, of the medical bills mounting. While her messages home went increasingly unanswered, she thought of her fellow miners, growing thinner and more desperate with each passing month. "You want me to join a rebellion?" she said. "I want you to survive," Kes replied, and there was something in his voice that made her look at him more carefully. "But if surviving means fighting back, then yes." The mining station's distant hum filled the silence as they regarded each other. Zara found herself studying Kes's face, noting the way the harsh tunnel lighting played across his blue skin, the determined set of his jaw. For 3 years, she'd seen him only as another overseer, another cog in the consortium's machine. Now she was beginning to see him as something else entirely. "If I agree," she said slowly. "What happens next?" Kes smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. "Next, we show you that you're not as alone as you think." The maintenance tunnels beneath Chronos 7's main habitat ring had been abandoned for over a year, officially declared to structurally unsound for regular use. Unofficially, they provided the perfect meeting place for conversations that couldn't happen under the watchful sensors of the station's surveillance network. Nira Solas crouched beside a junction box, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface as she rerouted communication frequencies. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, though rebellious strands had escaped to frame her face. 3 years as the station's primary communications specialist had taught her every secret pathway through the network, every blind spot. In the monitoring systems, signals clean, she whispered into her concealed transmitter. "Frequency 77 Alpha is secure for the next 20 minutes. The response crackled back almost immediately. "Copy that, Nira. Package delivered to Sector 7. Our friend from the mines is asking the right questions." Nira allowed herself a small smile. Kes had successfully made contact with Zara Thorne, just as planned. The mining engineers' recruitment was crucial to their growing resistance movement. Her technical skills and respected position among the workers made her invaluable. A soft footstep in the tunnel behind her made Nira freeze. Her hand moved instinctively to the plasma torch at her belt, though she knew it would be useless against station security armor. She turned slowly, expecting to face arrest or worse. Instead, she found herself looking into the concerned brown eyes of Jace Meridian. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly, his security uniform crisp despite the late hour. His hand rested on his sidearm, but hadn't drawn it. "Yet, neither should you," Nira replied, straightening, but keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "These tunnels are off-limits to everyone." Jace stepped closer, and in the dim emergency lighting, she could see the conflict written across his features. He was young for a security officer, probably only a few years older than her own 26. His dark skin was unmarked by the mining dust that stained most of the station's inhabitants, marking him as one of the privileged few who worked in the administrative sections. "I've been watching you," he admitted, his voice barely audible above the distant hum of the station's life support systems. Nira's pulse quickened. "Watching me how? Your communication logs show anomalies. Encrypted packets routing through abandoned relay stations. Frequency shifts that don't match any standard protocols." Jace paused, studying her face. "Either you're the worst communications specialist in the outer systems, or you're very good at hiding something. The smart thing would be to run." The tunnels had multiple exits, and Nira knew them better than any security officer. But something in Jace's tone stopped her. There was curiosity in his voice, not accusation. "Which do you think it is?" she asked. Jace was quiet for a long moment, his gaze dropping to the modified communication equipment scattered around her makeshift workstation. When he looked back at her, something had shifted in his expression. "I think you're trying to help people," he said. "I think you've noticed the same things I have. The discrepancies in the worker casualty reports, the communication blackouts that always seem to coincide with labor disputes, the way certain workers just disappear." Nira felt her breath catch. "Your security, you're supposed to report things like that." "To who?" Jace asked, and there was pain in his voice. "My immediate supervisor is on the consortium's payroll. Half the security force takes bribes to look the other way." The other half are true believers who think the workers deserve what they get. He moved closer, close enough that Nira could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of whatever internal struggle he was fighting. I became a security officer because I wanted to protect people, he continued. But every day, I watch good people suffer while I enforce the rules that keep them trapped. I'm part of the machine that's grinding them down, the vulnerability. In his admission caught Nira off guard. She'd expected to face interrogation or arrest, not confession. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his arm. You don't have to be, she said softly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through both of them. Jace looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then back at her face. In the dim light of the tunnel, the space between them seemed to crackle with possibility. What you're doing, he said. The resistance movement you're helping to organize, it's dangerous. If they catch you, if they catch any of us, we're dead, Nira finished. I know the risks, we all do. But doing nothing is also a choice, and I can't live with that choice anymore. Jace nodded slowly. Neither can I. The admission hung between them like a bridge across an impossible divide. Nira found herself studying his face, noting the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes never quite met hers, as if he was afraid of what he might see there. There's a general meeting tomorrow night, she said, making a decision that could get them both killed. Maintenance level, Section 12. If you're serious about helping, I'll be there, Jace said without hesitation, as if realizing how close they'd moved to each other. Both took a step back. The moment of connection stretched thin but didn't break. I should go, Jace said. My patrol route will be checked. Nira nodded, but as he turned to leave, she called his name softly. He paused, looking back over his shoulder. Why? She asked. Why tell me instead of turning me in? Jace's smile was sad but genuine. Because in 3 years of working security on this station, you're the first person who's made me remember why I wanted to help people in the first place. After he disappeared into the shadows of the tunnel, Nira stood alone in the dim emergency lighting, her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear of discovery. She'd expected to recruit workers and engineers to their cause, not security officers, and she certainly hadn't expected the complicated feelings that Jace Meridian's presence stirred. In her, tomorrow's meeting would change everything, she realized, not just for the resistance, but for both of them. The entertainment district of Kronos 7 pulsed with artificial life, a carefully constructed facade of pleasure and distraction designed to keep the station's workers from dwelling too long on their circumstances. Neon holographics painted the walls in shifting patterns of color, while synthesized music thrummed through the deck plating. It was here, in the belly of manufactured joy, that some of the station's darkest secrets were traded. Talon Cross moved through the crowded promenade with the quiet efficiency that had made him one of the station's most valued mechanical engineers. His tall, lean frame navigated between revelers and workers with practiced ease, though his gray eyes remained constantly alert. 3 months of attending resistance meetings had taught him to see surveillance devices hidden in decorative fixtures, to spot undercover security personnel among the pleasure seekers. He paused outside the Starlight Lounge, one of the district's more upscale establishments. Through the tinted transparestal windows, he could see the evening's entertainment beginning. Dancers moved across elevated platforms with fluid grace, their movements synchronized to the hypnotic rhythm of the music. But Talon wasn't here for the show. The lounge's back entrance opened onto a service corridor that connected to the engineering section's auxiliary access tunnels. It was the perfect place for a clandestine meeting, hidden in plain sight among the district's legitimate traffic. He checked his chronometer, 15 minutes early, just as he'd planned. You're not dressed for the show, a voice said behind him. Talon turned to find a woman emerging from the lounge's employee entrance. She was stunning in a way that made his breath catch, auburn hair cascading over one shoulder, emerald eyes that seemed to see straight through him, curves accentuated by a form-fitting dress that shimmered with embedded fiber optics. But it was her confident smile that held his attention, suggesting intelligence and humor beneath the carefully crafted exterior. Vera Nightwind, she said, extending a hand. And you must be the engineer Nira mentioned. Talon accepted her handshake. noting the calluses on her fingers that suggested more than just dancing in her background. Talon Cross. I was told to meet someone here about technical specifications. Vera's laugh was like music, drawing glances from passing pedestrians. Technical specifications. I like that. She gestured toward the service corridor. Shall we discuss these specifications somewhere more private? As they walked, Talon found himself stealing glances at his companion. He'd expected to meet another engineer or technician, not someone from the entertainment sector. The Resistance had been careful to compartmentalize their operations, so he knew little about the other cells beyond his own. You're wondering why. A dancer is involved in technical discussions, Vera said, apparently reading his thoughts. The thought had occurred to me, Talon admitted. People talk around dancers, she explained, her voice dropping to a more serious tone as they entered the quieter service area. Especially drunk people, lonely people, people who think we're just pretty decorations, who don't understand complex concepts like station, security, or mining quotas. They reached a maintenance alcove where Vera had apparently prepared a small workspace. Portable holo displays showed engineering schematics alongside surveillance footage and personnel files. The setup was more sophisticated than anything Talon had expected from the entertainment district. You're more than just a dancer, he said, studying the displays with professional interest. I'm whatever I need to be, Vera replied, activating one of the displays. Right now, I need to be someone who can get you the information your engineering team requires. The hologram showed detailed schematics of the station's power distribution network, overlaid with security patrol routes and communication relay positions. It was exactly the kind of comprehensive intelligence the Resistance had been struggling to gather. This is incredible, Talon breathed, moving closer to examine the data. How did you? 3 years of careful observation, Vera said, stepping beside him. 3 years of listening to conversations I wasn't supposed to understand, memorizing. Guard rotations, mapping blind spots in the surveillance network. Talon looked at her with new respect. You've been planning this longer than any of us. My sister was a mining engineer, Vera said quietly. Level 6, the deep extraction units. She started asking questions about safety protocols, organizing informal worker groups. Her voice hardened. They found her in a tunnel collapse, officially. It was an accident. The pain in her voice resonated with something deep in Talon's chest. He'd joined the Resistance out of principled opposition to the consortium's practices. But for Vera, this was personal. I'm sorry, he said, the words feeling inadequate. Vera nodded, accepting his sympathy but not dwelling on it. She believed the system could be changed from within, through proper channels and official complaints. I learned from her mistake. They worked in comfortable silence for several minutes, Talon absorbing the technical details while Vera provided context about security vulnerabilities and personnel weaknesses. Despite the circumstances, he found himself enjoying her company. She was brilliant, clearly, but also funny and engaging in a way that made him forget they were planning what amounted to a revolution, she said as they reviewed power coupling specifications. I never imagined I'd be discussing plasma conduit bypasses with someone who actually understood what I was talking about. Talon replied, surprised by his own boldness. I never imagined I'd be working with someone who could make engineering schematics seem elegant. Vera looked up from the display, her emerald eyes meeting his. Is that your way of saying I'm not what you expected? You're nothing like what I expected, Talon admitted, and everything I didn't know I was looking for. The words hung between them, more honest than either had intended. In the soft glow of the holographic displays, surrounded by the evidence of their shared conspiracy, something sparked between them that had nothing to do with Resistance planning. Talon, Vera said softly, stepping closer. Vera, he replied, and suddenly the space between them seemed charged with possibility. Before either could second-guess the moment, Vera's lips found his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then deeper as they discovered this unexpected connection amid the chaos of their circumstances. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. That wasn't in the technical specifications, Vera said, her voice light but her eyes serious. No, Talon agreed. but I think it might be the most important discovery I've made in a long time. The hydroponics gardens of Kronos 7 stretched across 3 levels of the station's agricultural section. Their carefully maintained atmosphere a stark contrast to the harsh mining tunnels below. Endless rows of growing tubes pulsed with soft, bioluminescent light, creating an almost otherworldly beauty among the vegetables and oxygen-producing algae that kept the station's population fed and breathing. Luna Chenokafer knelt beside a bank of nutrition monitors, her dark hands gentle, as she adjusted the mineral flow to a struggling batch of protein pods. Her grandmother's genetics had given her the warm brown skin and delicate features of old Earth's African diaspora, while her grandfather's contribution showed in the subtle epicanthic fold of her eyes and her petite frame. At 28, she'd spent 5 years maintaining the delicate ecological balance that kept 15,000 people alive in the void. The nitrogen levels are still fluctuating in Sector 12, she murmured to herself, making notes on her portable scanner. The consortium's cost-cutting measures had resulted in inferior equipment throughout the agricultural systems, forcing her to constantly improvise repairs and adjustments. A soft whistle echoed from the maintenance corridor behind the growing chambers, followed by the barely audible hum of anti-gravity units under strain. Luna glanced toward the sound, frowning. The delivery schedule showed no incoming shipments for another 6 hours. She made her way quietly through the towering plant arrays, following the sound to one of the auxiliary cargo entrances. Through a gap in the equipment, she could see a man in a worn flight suit carefully maneuvering a hover pallet, loaded with unmarked crates. His movements were practiced and silent, suggesting this wasn't his first unauthorized visit to the gardens. The man was tall and lean, with shoulder-length black hair pulled back in a practical tie and 3 days' worth of stubble, darkening his angular jaw. A scar curved along his left temple, barely visible beneath his hair, and his dark eyes constantly scanned his surroundings with the wariness of someone accustomed to danger. Luna stepped into view, causing him to freeze mid-motion. His hand moved instinctively toward what was probably a concealed weapon, then stopped when he saw she was alone and unarmed. "You're not supposed to be here," she said quietly, though without hostility. "Neither are these," he replied, gesturing to the crates. His voice carried a faint accent she couldn't place, something that suggested he'd grown up speaking multiple languages. "But people have needs that the consortium doesn't want to fill." Luna moved closer, noting the way he positioned himself between her and the crate's protective, but not threatening. "What kind of needs?" The man studied her for a long moment, apparently weighing whether she could be trusted. "Medical supplies mostly, real antibiotics, not the synthetic substitutes they provide in the worker clinics. Pain suppressors that actually work. Nutrition supplements for the miners who aren't getting enough calories to maintain their health." The explanation resonated with Luna's own frustrations. She'd seen too many workers arrive at the medical bays suffering from malnutrition and preventable illnesses that proper supplies could have avoided. "You're a smuggler," she said. "I'm Dex Raven," he replied with a slight smile. "And I prefer independent logistics specialist." Despite herself, Luna found his humor disarming. "Luna Chenokafer, and I prefer the person who could report you to station security, but you won't," Dex said with confidence that was either foolish or perceptive. "How can you be so sure?" Dex set down the pallet controls and leaned against one of the crates. "Because you've been short rationing your own meals to supplement the nutrition pools for the mining crews. Because you've been growing medicinal herbs in the unused sections of the agricultural bays, even though it's against regulations. Because you care more about keeping people alive than following rules that serve corporate profits." Luna felt heat rise in her cheeks. She'd thought her activities had gone unnoticed. Small acts of rebellion hidden among the legitimate agricultural operations. "You've been watching me," she said. "I've been watching everyone," Dex replied. "It's how I stay alive, but you're different. Most people in your position would have reported the nutritional deficiencies and moved on when nothing changed. You found ways to help anyway." The admission created an unexpected intimacy between them. Luna found herself studying his face more carefully, noting the intelligence in his dark eyes and the way his expression softened. when he spoke about helping people, these medical supplies. She said, gesturing toward the crates. Where do they go? Wherever they're needed most. The mining crews, the maintenance workers, the families in the lower habitat rings who can't afford the inflated prices. At the company medical centers, Luna made a decision that surprised her. The refrigeration units in Section 9 are more reliable. If you're storing anything that needs temperature control. Dex's eyebrows rose. Are you offering to help? I'm offering better storage conditions. Luna said carefully. What happens with the contents is your business. They worked together to move the crates to the more secure location, their conversation flowing naturally as they navigated the garden pathways. Luna found herself telling him about her work, about the constant struggle to maintain life support systems with inadequate resources. Dex shared stories of his travels between stations, painting a picture of widespread exploitation that extended far beyond Kronos 7. You could leave, he said as they secured the last crate in the refrigeration unit. With your skills, any station in the outer systems would hire you. Better pay, better conditions, and leave 15,000 people to starve when the hydroponics systems fail. Luna shook her head. These gardens are my responsibility, even when that responsibility might get you killed. Luna paused, struck by something in his tone. What do you mean? Dex was quiet for a moment, apparently debating how much to reveal. There are rumors, plans moving in the shadows. Change is coming to this station, and it won't be peaceful. You know about the resistance, Luna said, realization dawning. I've been supplying them for months, Dex admitted. Communication, equipment, weapons, medical supplies, everything they need for what's coming. Luna felt her pulse quicken. She'd suspected something was building among the workers, had noticed the subtle signs of organization and planning, but hearing it confirmed made it real in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. Are you asking me to choose sides? She asked. Dex stepped closer, close enough that she could see the intensity in his dark eyes. I'm asking if you want to be part of something bigger than just keeping people alive day by day. A chance to build something better. The space between them seemed to pulse with possibility. Luna found herself drawn to this man who risked his life to help strangers, who saw her small acts of rebellion as something worthy of respect. If I say yes, she said softly. What happens next? Next, Dex replied, his voice dropping to match hers. We change the world. Before she could analyze the wisdom of it, Luna stepped forward and kissed him. The kiss was fierce and desperate, born from months of isolation and the sudden hope that she wasn't alone in her fight against the system's cruelties. When they separated, both were breathing hard. Was that part of the recruitment process? Luna asked, trying to lighten the intensity of the moment. Dex's smile was warm and genuine. That was something entirely separate, but equally important. In the soft glow of the hydroponics equipment, surrounded by the life she'd dedicated herself to protecting, Luna realized she'd found something she hadn't even known she'd been searching for. Not just a cause worth fighting for, but someone worth fighting alongside. Would you like me to continue with Part 5, Liberation's Dawn, plotted final story part, with Romantic Rebellion Climax. 3s The user wants me to continue with Part 5, which is the final part of the story. This should bring all the characters together for the climactic uprising and resolution. I need to unite all the romantic couples established in the previous parts. Show the successful rebellion. Uprising provides satisfying romantic conclusions. For all the pairs, keep it at 1,000 words. Make it dramatic and fulfilling. The established couples are Zara, mining engineer, and Kess, alien overseer. Nira, communications specialist, and Jace, security officer. Talon, mechanical engineer, and Vera, dancer, information broker. Luna, botanist, and Dex, smuggler. The setting should be station-wide during the uprising and escape. Part 5, Liberations. Dawn. The revolution began at 0300 station time, when most of the administrative staff lay sleeping and the skeleton crew manning the night shift had grown complacent with routine. In the communications center, Nira's fingers flew across her console, systematically disabling surveillance networks while simultaneously broadcasting coded signals to resistance cells throughout Kronos 7. All channels secure, she whispered into her concealed transmitter. Phase 1 initiated. 3 levels below, in the mining equipment bay, Zara and Talon worked side by side, their engineering expertise put to deadly purpose, as they rigged explosives to the primary support struts of the administrative tower. Each charge was precisely placed to cause maximum structural damage while minimizing risk to the worker habitation areas. Timer set for 15 minutes. Talon reported, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what